us for episode 7 of our Law in Life series. Today we're going to be talking about buyer's agents and why would we use one. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Darkin Young people, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and acknowledging their elders past, present and emerging. So I'm very excited today by my panel I'm joined by. I'd like to start with you, John, introducing John Pidgeon. John is the Director and Head Property Coach at Solvere and also Envisage Property. And he's also the co-host of one of Australia's top financial podcasts, My Millennial Money and My Millennial Property. Welcome, John, and thank you for coming along to talk with us today.
Pleasure, Anna. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And Deborah Rendell is a licensed conveyancer with us at Aubrey Brown Lawyers. She is a part of our property team, and Deborah works closely with clients to help them navigate property, whether it's buying their first home, an investment property, downsizing and everything else that comes in between. So great to see you, Deb.
Hi, thanks Anna.
And finally, I'm joined by Ben Cawley. Ben is a experienced buyer's agent with Envisage Property, as well as a property coach. Thanks, Ben, for joining us today.
Thanks for the invite. It's great
now,
to be
we
here.
have discussed that we had a much better working environment last week over a glass of wine and a couple of beers, but today we're just going to have to roll with what we've got. So I might jump in with you, John. You've got a very interesting and quite unique business. Tell us about Solvere and Envisage Property.
Yeah, so I suppose they're two very different businesses in the same industry. So I'll go back to when I first started property investing, and the key issue that I had with my property investing journey is that I didn't have the resources around me. So back then the internet maybe wasn't up and running as much as it is today. So I was literally waiting for the property investor magazines in the newsagents once a month, and I'd get a lot of my data from there. But also didn't have a team of people or family and friends that were educated in that space as investors. So fast forward, I wanted to create, after I'd started investing and I suppose became half decent at it, I wanted to then create an education company that did that basically and teach people how to invest in property. So that's Solvere, that's been running 6-7 years now. Envisage is basically born out of the fact that not a lot of people want to, or not everyone wants to take it by the horns and go and find their own property. So that's where that buyer's agent piece comes into it.
Fantastic. And I've had the privilege of coming along that journey with you. I think that you ended up in my office when you were very first setting out with Solvere, and it's been really exciting for me to watch you go on that journey and watch you grow, and how your business has developed, and you've expanded your knowledge and your products and what you do. So property coaching, if I came to you and engaged you as a property coach, just give me a quick overview of what you would help me with.
Yeah, so I suppose it gets right down to the basics of understanding what people want in their life financially. So their goals and outcomes, and definitely their cash flow management, what's coming in, what's going out, which is really important but often underrated. And then moves into more that education piece of what property means to them and how they can then take action through buying investment properties. So we talk to them about how to create their own strategies. We talk to them about is it a house, is it a unit, is it a townhouse to buy, is it new, is it old. We talk about a team of people around them like yourselves and accountants and how to relate with real estate agents and basically the whole box and dice over a 12-month journey.
Great. And Deb, you work with clients with both John and Ben in their buyer's agent space and their property coaching space. What benefits do clients tell you they get from working with these guys?
Well, mainly they're clients that I find are time poor and not in a position to go out looking at properties, so they engage a buyer's agent, and these guys do everything. They order the pest and buildings, they do all the negotiations. The clients really are guided by them to what they're buying. majority of people at the moment are investors purchasing properties, and the guys just lead them through all of that, and I'm getting very good feedback from clients. I haven't had yet a turnaround with clients coming back to sell a property yet. Obviously an investment is a long-term thing, but I certainly hope that through you guys and myself that I've built a rapport with clients, and then they continue on that journey with me, and coming from you guys at the start is certainly wonderful. So yeah.
Thanks, Deb. So, Ben, Deb's touched on a little bit of what you guys do as a buyer's agent. Could you walk me through? I've come into your office to sit down with you today and said to you, "Radio, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to purchase a property." Where do you go from there, and what do you do?
So basically, we would sit down, have a strategy session first, and we'd work out exactly your needs, your wants, what that property needs to look like for you, and whether that's from a cash flow perspective or a growth perspective. And then we'd obviously, working with the pre-approval, make sure that process is all good to go. And then once we're comfortable with our strategy, we then go out, we pick a location. Usually there's a bit of an education piece around why we're buying here and what we're buying, type of dwelling as an example. And then from there we go out and source that property for them and talk them through why we think this is a good investment or why this ticks your boxes and get their feedback. Because everyone wants different things in their property. So basically it's about finding the right fit for them as well, but also making sure it's a good investment long term.
And when you're looking at location, is it just around the Central Coast?
No, so we purchase anywhere around the country basically, as long as we believe it's a high performing asset, and we obviously use a lot of data to find those locations and back that up. But some clients may have a preference where they want to go, but a lot of clients will come and say, "Hey, I'm guided by you guys. Can you help me make the best investment decision possible?" And then we'll go out from there.
So it's not like the television shows where they go and see a couple of houses and then a mystery house and then miraculously here we are.
No, it's not like that.
Yeah. Do the clients always inspect the house, or are there times when clients will just buy the property based on the numbers?
Yeah, so almost majority don't actually inspect our house. Me and Deb and I actually did one yesterday where the client's on a holiday in New Zealand, and she literally signed contracts and everything while she was over there. She obviously, we worked out that strategy and the property ticked all the boxes she needed, and we did a video walkthrough for her and things like that. But she hasn't seen the property, and she probably won't see it until it settles.
It really comes down to someone's risk profile, doesn't it? Like a lot of investors are better off not seeing it because they then become emotionally involved in the process and can say, "Well, I wouldn't live there," but we've got to remove that emotion aspect.
Yeah, so for rental purposes, remove that emotion. You're going to put a tenant in there as an investment. They don't really need to see it, do they?
No. No.
Do you have clients come to you who want help buying their home that they want to live in?
We do. I suppose our passion for educating and creating strategies is the exciting part for us. So a lot of that doesn't need to be as evident when you're buying your own home to live in. But we do offer that as a service. But I suppose people generally come to us because they want strategy around building a portfolio through investing.
Fantastic. So we've talked about what you do. What are the additional things that you do? So Deb touched on some of them, like arranging pest and building reports, because in addition to helping clients find the property, you're also taking a lot of the stress and the time they might need to spend out of the transactional part of the process as well, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it, Deb, about being time poor. Like a lot of people running busy lives at that at the present. So I think it's understanding the people's needs and requirements. Some want to be involved, but just need their hand being held. Others are just like, well, create the strategy, get the finance structure, go and look for the property, negotiate on our behalf, do the building and pest, basically the whole box and dice from start to finish. So I think everyone's got different needs and different risk profiles. So it's really understanding right at the beginning what they want and what they need, and then almost filling the gaps. And unlike other buyer's agents that we know, I suppose we have two different packages. One where they can actually do the searching themselves, but we create the strategy, which we quite enjoy because they get to learn that way and sort of teach a person to fish type philosophy. But the second package is more of a all-inclusive, sit back and analyse what we're doing, and then you're the one buying the property, so you need to understand what it is that you're buying, but a lot of the work's been done.
So some clients have expressed to me when we've talked about should they use a buyer's agent, well, I'll just end up paying 2 lots of commission because I'll pay the vendor's commission embedded in the price, and then I'll pay a second round of commission, but your fee structure isn't commission based on the value of the property, is it? You've got a different fee structure.
Yeah, so I suppose going back a step, people use a real estate agent to sell their property and appreciate the expert advice in that space, but not a lot of people traditionally have used a buyer's agent to buy a property. And I suppose that's where we come in. 20 years ago it was for the rich and famous that didn't want anyone to know that they bought a property, so they just engage a buyer's agent. Now the smart people are saying, well, I'm time poor, it's not my expertise, I'm going to let someone who does this for a living do it on my behalf. But yeah, you're right, there's a lot of, I suppose, in the industry charge a percentage of sale price or purchase price. We charge a fixed rate, so they know that there's full transparency, that it doesn't matter what price they're paying for the property. That's the one price fee.
Fantastic.
Can I just ask a question with that?
Sure.
So if you have a first-time person investing, their first investment, or a first-home buyer, which it then becomes an investment property as such, if they come to you a second time round, obviously they're savvy on what the process is. Do you have a fee structure in relation to that? So if they're building their portfolio, for them to come to you for a second property, do you have like a fee structure in relation to them doing a second time round with you?
Yeah, we do. We have a two purchase package.
Yep.
But we're also realising that yes, we know the person, we know their strategy, or we know their goals and what they're wanting to achieve. There's still the same amount of work that needs to be put into it. So it depends. Like someone might start off with package 2, and then their second purchase with us might be package 1 because they've learnt the process. So that's where we've got the ability to pivot left or right with the client over the journey. And we've had a lot, haven't we, been in the last sort of 6 to 12 months that have come back for a second dose because the property markets around the country have been pretty kind to us. So they've come back and said, let's do this again. And they get a good result.
I can imagine from now on you'll have repeat clients coming back to do it, to buy a second investment property.
Yeah, and I think without being sort of too much time relative, it's at the minute the last few years have been pretty kind from a growth point of view. So it's almost in a lot of cases around the country we've had beginner's luck. It's like we've bought a property, it's gone up in value. How easy is this? It's now a really important time in the next 6 to 12 months that we just don't pull that equity out and go and blow it on something because we didn't have the knowledge.
And I think that going back to that package 1 is perfect for someone like myself. When I was first investing, I loved property, I loved looking for property, but I just needed someone beside me that I could say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Hey, I found this property, can you check this? Just to give me a bit of guidance, I guess, to make the best investment moving forward. Where I was sort of screaming for someone like that when I was 18, 19, and I was just looking through realestate.com saying, this one looks good, this one looks good. But to have someone in my corner to be able to say, nah, steer away from that one because of A, B and C, or no, let's go on this one and only go to this price because that's what it's worth. Not just because the agent's saying it's worth this much, it's actually only worth this much. So having that expert guidance, I guess, is an amazing opportunity, I think.
And Deb, when you're working with the clients on the conveyancing part of the process, there are quite a few different things that can come up for either a owner, occupier, purchaser or an investor, in addition to just looking at the contract itself. What other types of things do you advise your clients on?
Rentals. So a lot of these properties that are coming through from Envisage either already have a tenant in place or they're going to put a tenant into the property. So it's having that discussion with clients as well. Generally, the guys have already done that and they've already got in place, a managing agent, etc. But if there is a lease in place, we certainly, that carries on. They can change managing agents, just things like that. But,
and there are some changes ahead in relation to stamp duty and the way that people can elect to pay stamp duty, aren't there?
Yes, there are. So that will come in January. That is for first home buyers up to $1,050,000, I think it is.
Okay, a nice
honestly,
easy
Anna,
Nice
not
little
really across all of it just yet, because it's only just came in 2 weeks ago. It was passed in Parliament. It will be available only to first home buyers to just over $1 million. They'll assess the amount that you've purchased for and what your stamp duty will be, and then you can pay that each year, I understand, as a property tax. And the Revenue New South Wales will calculate what your tax is going to be each year for you to pay.
We actually did a case study on that a few weeks ago, and we worked out on $1 million property is probably beneficial if you're going to hold it for 10 years or more.
Yes.
To take that option of no stamp duty,
Yeah.
knowing that over the long journey. But if it's a 3 or 4 year hold only, then it's a different conversation.
That's correct. Yeah, because you would have to pay out at settlement at the other end. If you sell the property, you're going to have to pay what you owe back.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, as you and I both know, over the last 5 years particularly, there has been so much change in the way stamp duty and land tax is assessed. And one of the things that is very technical is identifying whether purchasers are foreign residents for the purpose of stamp duty and land tax, because it's applied differently, they're assessed differently, and if they fall within that definition, then they've got to pay surcharges and additional costs. So that area has become far more technical than it used to be 10 years ago, and I know that we do a lot more work with clients around that. So just quickly, what sort of properties do you buy for clients, and how do you source them? Where do the properties come from?
Yeah, so interesting questions. I think first of all, I've always been told land goes up, building value goes down. So that's not a cookie cutter approach across everyone's strategy, but it's a pretty good starting point to understand different markets around the country, the difference between housing and unit market performance over the journey. And that's a lot of the research that we do on behalf of the clients. So when they come to us with a purchase price in mind or a borrowing capacity, we've got the ability to say, well, these markets work from a price point of view, but then this strategy, this type of property works in this particular area because of past performance and what we see with population growth and infrastructure and economy and those sort of things. So a lot of that research is done in-house by us to understand what it's going to be best for that client. And I think that's the beauty of having the ability to invest across different states of Australia is if we're just a buyer's agent here locally on the Central Coast, we don't get a feel for what everything else is doing. So it's not relative to the price you're paying, if that makes sense. So how we access those properties is our job as relationship managers with agents, trying to secure off-market properties, which has been pretty popular with us in the last few years. But I think the relationship with agents is really key. Would you agree, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. they have the access to properties coming up, so it's crucial to be front of mind for them. And we have lots of agents that we've worked with over the years that know what we look for in a property, and when that comes up, a lot of the time we're the first people they call and say, hey, I've got this available, have you got any clients that would suit it? And sometimes we don't just purchase them off their word, so we check the price and we check the flood zones and all that due diligence as well before we then pass them on to a client.
Yeah, fantastic. And my final question, we have moved from a very intense cycle in the property market where properties have been selling literally the day they hit the market. Prices have been increasing monthly on those properties and interest rates were very low. We're now entering a time where interest rates are normalising, in my experience, not going up but just normalising back to where I've experienced them to be most of my career. What advice do you have to people around buying in that market? Because I do sense that some people are holding back at the moment and a little bit skittish about what's going to come next.
Yeah, another great question. I think if someone's listening to this in 6 months' time, this answer is not going to be appropriate. But I think, and we've spoken about it internally, is like this next 6 month period is an amazing time to get into real estate for a couple of reasons. One is because, as you mentioned, a lot of people sitting on the fence, scared about where interest rates are going, etc., which is also meaning that the demand of property is down, but the supply is also low. So we've got the ability to go and handpick properties that people need to sell or have cashed in on the last couple of years of growth. So I think my advice, or our advice, is, well, interest rates are rising, cost of running a property is more expensive now, so make sure you do your numbers and do them really well before you've bought, not before you go unconditional.
Yes.
And then the second part of it is take action. I mean, if a lot of people before COVID, for example, sat on the fence through fear of what properties were going to do, because everyone in the media was saying property's going to plummet, property went up 30%, those that sat on the fence missed the market. So take action and understand your cash flow.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to thank the three of you for joining me today. It's been really, really interesting, and I've learned a lot about the value of using a buyer's agent. You've sort of feeling like, okay, maybe I need to go and buy an investment property. Thanks, John and Ben. And Deb, as always, I really want to acknowledge you for the care and the passion that you show for the clients that you work with. You do a fantastic job, and your dedication that I see day in and day out in the office, you really go above and beyond. So thank you, and thank you all for coming along today.
Pleasure.
And thank you for joining us for episode 7 of our Law in Life series. We will be moving into our next one, which is going to be about how to work with a lawyer and what you should know about choosing a lawyer, and also then working with that lawyer. And I will be joined by some of my colleagues for that episode. Please share us with your friends, share us with social media, and we hope that you're getting some value out of these episodes.